Hi guys, it's Ray from Ray's Turquoise Turtle. I'm going to do two quick beachscapes on metal trays for you today. I'm going to be using paints for both from Treasures by the Sea, Seapaints. This one I already painted with Secrets. That blend is a little bit thinner. They come in bottles like this. I used a variety of colors. I will list them in the description. For the other one, it's just plain right now. I will be mixing the paints right in. I'm going to do this on this little Lazy Susan I picked up at the thrift store. So for this one's going to go fairly quickly. I just put a little squirt of each color on, blended it with a chip brush, and let it dry. The only other thing I'm going to need for this one is some white for the waves. For that, I am going to use a little bit of the Salty Secret from Treasures by the Sea. I'm just going to kind of throw all of my whites at the white. Just a couple drops when you're using a paint, otherwise it'll get gooey and stringy. I'm also going to use a little bit of the Alumilite opaque dye. And I'm also going to just add a couple of drops of Pinata white alcohol ink. And I'm going to go ahead and mix all that in. A little piece of dried blue in there. Pretty white, but I'm going to add just a tiny bit more. Of the paint. Okay, so that is all I'm going to need other than clear epoxy for this particular piece. I've already mixed up a 1-to-1 epoxy. For this project, I'm going with Promarine. You mix equal parts of the A and equal parts of the B. That is the tabletop epoxy from Promarine. So I'm just going to pour a little bit on. I have 2 cups mixed. I'm going to work back and forth between the two just to use from both cups to keep them both moving. I'm going to go ahead and spread this with a gloved hand. I don't want to slop up the sides where I haven't really painted, because I'm not going to do a deep pour on this. I just want enough to cover and have a little bit of movement with the whites. If I feel like I need a little bit more, just add a little bit more. Most epoxies are self-leveling. There's a few that are designed specifically to dome. They're more used for jewelry and pieces like that. I'm going to go ahead and take this glove off and swap it for a fresh one. Because I don't want resin on my hands. And then I'm going to go ahead and just hit this with a torch real quick to pop any air bubbles. Just wipe my hand off with a baby wipe in between gloves too, just to make sure I didn't have any resin on me. Okay, so just a little butane torch, nothing fancy. Quick across the top to pop the bubbles. Okay, so I'm going to take my white and I'm going to carefully, I'm going to try not to get too much over the sides, drip it across. You don't want too much, but you don't want too little. No real rhyme or reason. And I'm going to try and alternate which end I start from, because usually the starting end, when you're not coming, if I was doing it on a flat surface, I would come from the edge over to the edge, so I had one straight line. But because I'm not doing that, it's going to have a little bit more of a pool on the starting edge. Okay, so that is my white in there. I'm going to take, first I'm going to pick this up and wipe off some of these drips from here, because I don't want them getting on the back side. And I see where I dripped on the edge a little bit. I want to wipe that off. I don't want to take too much light away, but it's kind of distracting, I think. Maybe. Okay. First I'm going to hit this with the heat gun and see if I get what I'm looking for there. So, a little bit of noise. I just use a regular embossing gun for now. Someday I'll have a real heat gun. Soon. The goal is to get these to form waves, hopefully some cells and some lacing in the resin. Hopefully you can see where that lacing is starting to happen. I'll pick it up and bring it a little closer in a second, once I'm done heating. I'm going to go back and add some white to that spot, I think, in a minute. But hopefully you can see. Now, because this is a metal pan, it is a little warm underneath. But you can see what I mean by the cells and the lacing. I'm going to add a little bit more white through this line. Then I'm going to move on to the next one. I might just put a tiny bit up at the very top. Okay, and that is actually going to be it for that one. It does have some movement and some flow to it right now. I'm not even going to hit this one with the torch again. I'm just going to let it be. Excuse me. So, this one, I'm not painting the background in any way, so kind of an experiment. We'll see what's going to happen here. I have a bunch of cups. I already started to put a little bit of epoxy in some of them, just to break the epoxy down some more. This one I'll probably use a little bit more in, just because I'm not sure exactly how much of each color, and I'll probably do a little bit deeper of a pour on this one. I just know the two browns I'm going to use, I don't need as much. And I may freshen up that white just a tiny bit. So I'll bring that in. Grab this cup over here. Okay. Just going to add a little bit of the dye to it this time. I'm going to set that aside. It's basically going to be the same thing. We're just going to be applying the color differently this time around. Sorry I didn't get to pre-mix these. When you're mixing the paint directly in the epoxy, you have to be careful not to put too much in at a time. So for this one, I'm going to be using the actual paint from the Treasures by the Sea line. I'm going to use like 6 blues and 2 browns. So I'm going to use this cup and this cup for browns. I'm going to use this one for, now, when I say a tiny bit, this is a standard size popsicle stick, like basically that much. So not much at all. I'm going to go ahead and mix up all of my colors like that. Again, if you use too much, it gets stringy and impossible to work with. And being that I'm not working on a prepped surface, this was just a naked metal. I'm honestly not sure what direction the colors are really going to go. Whether they'll stay a little bit translucent or not. Those are my two darkest colors. There's a little bit more in this cup. A little bit more in this cup, so I'm going to do a little bit more paint. If I feel like it's getting too stringy, I do have all that extra paint, or extra mixed epoxy that I can add to any given cup. I'm trying to work fairly quickly. Because once you start working with paints in the epoxies, you don't want it to sit too awfully long. Again, this is 6 blue-green shades. And then I'll have 2 browns for the sandy bottom. It's just an alternative to painting a piece prior to the epoxy. Okay, onto my 2 browns, and then I'll be ready to pour. I had really good intentions of keeping one of these pans. I bought 4 today as a dirty pour, but I didn't. I prepped 2 for, well, I prepped 1 for this, 1 for this, and then I have 2 black pans that I'm going to do galaxies on. Trying to get my paint closed. Okay. Mix those up and then I will get started. Now this one, I may get a little bit on the edges that I have to clean up when I'm done. But that's not the end of the world. My intentions are to leave the edges of this one just the silver, but you never know. I may change my mind. So, my colors, darkest to light. That's how I'm going to pour them. And I am just literally going to start at the top and pour them in. If I feel like I don't have enough to cover the whole thing, that's when I will go ahead and mix up a little bit more. I'm going to pour this one down at the bottom next to try and dictate where the beach is going to go. And it's okay if the colors overlap a bit. When I paint them on, they overlap and combine. And so I'm going to put some sand at the very bottom, the lighter color. And then, whoops, I'm going to do the darker color more towards the water where the sand would be wetter and darker anyways. And I'll go ahead and let that overlap a little bit as well. When I put some heat to this, it's going to help all of these spread together. I'm going to go in with my next darkest. Overlap it a little bit. I'm going to come in with this one. I can also go in and add some clear if I don't want more color. And my last color, overlap a bit. This one's tilting that way a little bit, but that's all right. It's not super fluid, but it is going to move some. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that with the heat gun to warm it up a little bit and spread it around some. If you're working on one of these tins, again, be aware when you're heating it. Obviously, it's going to get hot. Try not to burn yourself. And I do think I'm going to go ahead and mix up a little bit more resin in a couple of colors at least. Just because I want it a little bit more fluid. Maybe not all of them, but some of them. I think I want to hit that dark blue with a tiny bit more resin and maybe a little bit more paint. I feel like it's not as dark as it could be. I'm not sure where I'm at in the frame. My camera's dropping a little bit. Okay. Most of these I'm not even going to worry about mixing more paint in. Even if they go in a little more opaque, it's fine. I'm just going to try and pour them on top of each other. There is a formula as to how much resin you need for a piece. I didn't really go by the formula today, so am I doing on time? I'm trying to keep this to under 33 minutes because my phone will cut my video off at 33 minutes and 8 or 10 seconds. Never fails, so I'm gonna try and finish before then. And I think I'm gonna prop the back edge of this pan up a little bit in a second. Now, you can see where this one's getting a little bit stringier. That's what I'm talking about with too much paint. It'll still be workable for this project, but not ideal. And I think this is it. Drag some of the darker down. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just I'm going to tilt it again first. Okay. I'm going to put a couple popsicle sticks on the back corner and see if that helps level it a little bit. I'm going to try and bring my phone back without dropping it in the resin too. I'm gonna hit it with some heat, let it spread around some more. Just getting it to move, flow, spread out, fill all the little nooks and crannies before I go in with that white. This is why I wanted the Lazy Susan. Now, I probably should have greased the pan, so to speak. I should have gone in and put a very thin layer of just the clear epoxy down. It would have helped all of this move a little bit had I done that, but I forgot. Got lazy, however you want to put it. Now this is really warm, so it's really fluid right now. So I should be able to just tilt it and get coverage everywhere. And hopefully it won't pull away from the edges too awful much. And bring it back the other way. It's kind of like working an acrylic dirty pour. Okay, so that is it for that step. I do want to grab one of the sticks from the browns. I don't really love what the brown did there. Okay. And I kind of lost quite a bit of the beach on this one. I might be able to tilt it back and push some. Also, if I reduce that by 1, it might keep it more that way. Okay, so same thing. I keep knocking you or something. Alright, same thing with the white, which is still workable, so that's good news. I'm going to try and trace right along this edge with a fairly thick line this time. And hopefully I'll still get some good movement in the white. Give it another line right here. I have a bad tendency of doing like straight lines. I'm trying to get a little more movement on this one. And they don't have to be complete lines. Okay. I feel like when I'm working on camera, everything takes me twice as long. or I make mistakes, or say the wrong words. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and hit this with the heat gun real quick because my time is running out. So hopefully I'll be able to get this to work in a hurry. Okay, all I'm gonna do to this is torch it for bubbles for a little bit, but it is done. I got some beautiful lacing on this one, but hopefully that answers the can you mix your sea paints in epoxy? You sure can. And it is super fluid right now, so I can kind of stretch some of this if I want and move it around. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, ask me here, or I'm going to post this over on the Treasures by the Sea Facebook group, which I will link in the description below. Thanks. Bye-bye.